All right, get ready because today we're going deep into the Tao Te Ching. We'll be using Stephen Mitchell's audiobook readings to guide us. And just from listening to some excerpts, I'm already hooked by those bits of wisdom, all those mind-bending paradoxes.
Yeah,
It feels like we're about to unlock some serious life secrets.
absolutely. It's definitely a text that's, it makes you think, makes you really think. And Mitchell's readings, I think they do such a good job of bringing it to life. He uses kind of a Zen approach, very poetic. So,
It's like you found the key or something,
yeah.
made this ancient wisdom like relevant to us, today. Speaking of ancient, though, who was this Lao Tzu guy? And how did this mysterious book even come about?
Well, he's definitely shrouded in myth. Some people think he was an archivist, maybe even a contemporary of Confucius.
Right.
But even his name, translates to old master or even like old boy. It just adds to the mystery.
Yeah.
It's like he just kind of appeared out of nowhere.
Hmm.
Gave us this incredible book, the Tao Te Ching, and then vanished just as mysteriously.
So we have a mystery author and a book that's been kind of puzzling people for centuries. What's the core message, though? What's it all about?
You'll find that the Tao Te Ching is all about aligning yourself with the Tao, the fundamental principle of reality.
Okay.
It's often translated as the way, but that doesn't really capture its depth. The Tao is, well, it's eternal, it's nameless, it's formless, it's the source of all things. I kind of think of it like a cosmic river. It shapes everything, yet it remains unseen.
That's a great image, a cosmic river shaping everything. But Mitchell's readings also really hit on this paradox that the Tao does nothing, yet everything happens through it. So how can something do nothing but still accomplish everything? Kind of blowing my mind a little bit.
It is, yeah. It's one of those concepts that really challenges our linear way of thinking.
Hmm.
But the best way I can think to explain it is to think of it like the Tao is the fertile ground, like from which a tree grows.
Yeah.
So the Tao is not actively growing that tree,
Yeah.
right? But it's providing everything that the tree needs to grow naturally.
So it's less about like taking action and more about creating the right conditions, kind of like a gardener nurturing the soil.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of Wu Wei comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Non-action. It's not about being passive, but about aligning with the Tao's natural flow. So you act without forcing or striving.
Ooh, non-action. I love that concept. Makes me think about when I finally nailed that tricky guitar riff I was working on. For weeks, I was so tense, forcing my fingers, and it just sounded awful. But then I just relaxed, let go of the tension, and boom, my fingers just flowed. It
Yeah.
was like magic.
That is a perfect example of Wu Wei in action. It's
Yeah.
about effortless flow. That sweet spot, right?
Hmm.
Where effortlessness meets effectiveness.
Yeah.
And it's not just about playing guitar. It applies to every single aspect of life, from relationships to work, creative pursuits, anything.
So if we want to tap into this power of Ru Wei to be more like that effortless guitarist,
Yeah.
where do we even begin?
Well, the Tao Te Ching introduces us to this figure, this idea of the master, who embodies the principles of the Tao
Okay, the master.
and acts with effortless grace.
Is this like some unattainable ideal, some mystical guru on a mountaintop, or is this something we can all aspire to?
That's the beauty of the Tao Te Ching. It suggests that, anyone can embody the qualities of the master by cultivating a deep connection to the Tao. So think of it as a journey of self-discovery,
Wow.
constantly letting go of the ego and embracing that natural flow of life.
So becoming the master is less about reaching some high status and more about an inner transformation, like a way of being in the world.
Exactly. It's a process, a continual process of refinement. It's like a sculptor chipping away at a block of stone to reveal that beauty within.
From what I'm gathering from the readings, the master isn't someone who chases power or control. Actually, they seem to accomplish the most by doing the least, right? Another one of those paradoxes, right?
Absolutely. One of the most striking paradoxes is this idea that the master is ahead by staying behind.
Right.
Now, in a world where, leadership often equates to dominance and control,
Yeah.
that notion is, well, revolutionary.
Okay, ahead by staying behind. How can that possibly work in the real world? I mean, it sounds nice, but wouldn't people just walk all over you?
Well, think of it as a powerful metaphor for humility, for non-striving. So imagine a leader who steps back, right, allows others to take the lead instead of dominating.
Okay.
They create space for others to shine. And that fosters collaboration and harmony. It's achieving true leadership by not grasping for it.
Like that saying, the best leaders are the ones who make everyone else feel like they're the leader. It's about empowering, not controlling.
Exactly. And it's not just about leadership. This applies to relationships to creativity, even personal growth. Sometimes the most effective way to achieve our goals is to let go of our need to control the outcome and trust the process.
So it's about surrendering to the Tao, trusting that things will unfold as they should. It's a very different way to look at life, isn't it?
It is, and that's the real challenge. It's easy to talk about letting go of control, but to actually do it, it requires, well, a radical shift in perspective.
Well, I'm up for the challenge. What are some specific principles, some practices from the Tao Te Ching that can help us on this journey to mastering ourselves? Where do we even start?
We've touched on Wu Wei, the art of effortless action, but the Tao Te Ching also emphasizes, well, softness, yielding.
Softness. Isn't that a bit, I don't know, soft? Don't we need to be assertive? Stand up for ourselves in this world.
Well, think of it like the flexibility of a willow tree, how it bends in the wind. It's about adaptability, about resilience. It's about knowing when to yield, when to not resist. Like water. Water can carve through rock, not through force, but through persistent, yielding nature.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that could be really powerful. How does that play out in everyday life? Is it about being a pushover, or is there a way to be yielding and strong at the same time?
It's about finding that balance. It could be, choosing to listen deeply in a disagreement instead of trying to win the argument. Or adapting to those unexpected changes with grace instead of frustration. It's recognizing that sometimes going with the flow, just like water, is the best way to navigate obstacles.
Like that old martial arts principle, the soft overcomes the hard. Use your opponent's force against them.
Exactly. And the Tao Te Ching suggests this applies not just to physical combat, but to everything in life.
So we've got Wu Wei, the effortless action and softness, the power of yielding. Are there any other key principles we should be aware of?
Another important one is emptiness.
Emptiness. That sounds a little bleak, like having an empty bank account.
No, no, not quite.
Okay.
The emptiness referred to in the Tao Te Ching is more of a mental and spiritual state, a state of openness and receptivity. It's about clearing your mind of clutter, preconceived notions, desires, judgments, all that stuff, to make space for the Tao to work its magic.
So like creating a clear, receptive space within yourself, sort of like decluttering your mind to make room for new ideas, for inspiration.
Exactly. Think of the empty space in the center of a wheel or the hollow inside a pot. It's that emptiness that gives those objects their function. And in the same way, by emptying ourselves of ego and attachment, we become vessels for the Tao. And that allows it to flow through us, to guide our actions.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. It's like that feeling after you clean out a closet, You get rid of all that old junk and suddenly you've got this sense of space, of possibility.
Exactly. And the Tao Te Ching is basically suggesting that our minds can benefit from that same decluttering. It's about creating space for new perspectives,
Yeah.
for new possibilities to emerge.
So it's not about becoming empty in a negative way. It's about creating a fertile void, a space for something new to be born.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. It's recognizing that sometimes letting go is the key to receiving something even greater.
So we've got Wu Wei, softness, and emptiness. Three powerful principles from the Tao Te Ching to help us navigate life with more grace, more wisdom. But before we get too carried away with all this profound stuff, how about we take a quick pause and let it all sink in?
That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
We have covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And there's still so much more to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, we'll dive even deeper into those paradoxes of the Tao Te Ching and see how they play out in our social and political lives. So stick around. We're just getting started. Welcome back, everyone. Ready for some more mind-bending wisdom from the Tao Te Ching?
Yeah.
We've been talking about these powerful principles like wu wei, softness, emptiness, but I'm really fascinated by those paradoxes woven throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, the paradoxes, they're what makes the Tao Te Ching so endlessly fascinating, right?
Yeah.
They just force us to think differently, to see past the surface and uncover some deeper truths.
One that really stood out to me was the path into the light seems dark. So how can something be both light and dark at the same time? What's Lao Tzu getting at here?
Well, you got to remember that Lao Tzu, he was a master of using paradoxes to sort of shed light on, well, the nature of reality. And in this case, he's pointing out the unexpected nature of the Tao. Our minds, they tend to gravitate toward what's easy, what's familiar, the well-lit path. But real growth often requires us to to venture into the unknown, right? To face our shadows, to embrace that darkness within ourselves.
So it's like saying the most direct path to enlightenment. It might not always be clear-cut or easy. It's like a seed needing to be buried in the darkness of the soil before it can sprout and grow.
Exactly. The path to growth, it often involves challenges, setbacks, even darkness. And it's in those moments of apparent darkness that we discover our greatest strength, our resilience.
There's another passage that kind of echoes this idea. The path forward seems to go back. That one really threw me for a loop. Are we supposed to be walking backward through life?
I think it suggests that, well, that progress, it's not always linear, right? Sometimes we need to step back, reevaluate, maybe even retrace our steps to find the true path forward. It's all about flexibility, about being adaptable,
Yeah.
being willing to adjust course as needed.
That makes me think of all the times I've been so laser focused on a goal that I missed opportunities along the way. Maybe it's more about the journey than the destination, huh?
Absolutely. That's a key insight from the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah.
It's not about rigidly sticking to the plan, but being open to those unexpected twists and turns.
There's another paradox that I find really intriguing and challenging. True power seems weak. Our culture, we associate power with, dominance and control. But the Tao Te Ching seems to suggest a very different kind of power.
Right. It's a power that comes from humility, from yielding, from letting go of that need to source things. It's the power of water. It can wear down even the hardest stone, not by force, but by its persistent gentleness.
Right. It's like the power of influence instead of the power of control, right? It's about inspiring others to follow willingly, not through force or manipulation.
Exactly. Reminds me of Mitchell's point about how the master leads by example, not by force. It's a subtle, almost invisible kind of power that arises from aligning yourself with the Tao.
So we're talking about a power that comes from within, from aligning ourselves with the natural flow of the universe. It's fascinating, but is it really practical in the real world?
Well, I think the Tao Te Ching offers a really unique perspective on power.
Yeah.
It suggests that true power lies in aligning oneself with the Tao, embracing humility, softness, non-action.
It's incredible how these ancient teachings still resonate so strongly today. It's like Lao Tzu tapped into some universal truths that transcend time and culture.
Right. That's the power of this text.
Yeah.
It speaks to something deep within us, something that recognizes the wisdom of these ancient principles.
What I love about Mitchell's readings is how he connects these abstract ideas to the real world.
Yes.
He uses examples from nature, from everyday life, even politics, to illustrate the principles of the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah, he does a phenomenal job of bridging that gap between ancient wisdom and modern life. He's showing us how we can apply these timeless principles to the problems we face today.
Like when he's talking about the dangers of greed and ambition, he brings up this example of a country stockpiling weapons instead of investing in its people. It's a powerful reminder of how our desire for security and power can lead to, well, the very things we fear.
Exactly. It's clinging to power and control that often creates more insecurity and conflict.
Yeah.
And the Tao Te Ching, it encourages a different approach, one that's based on cooperation, on balance, on recognizing our interconnectedness.
Another passage Mitchell points out that really got me thinking was success is as dangerous as failure. That just seems so counterintuitive, right? I mean, we're constantly being told to strive for success, to avoid failure at all costs.
Yeah, the Tao Te Ching, it encourages us to really question those assumptions.
Yeah.
It suggests that both success and failure are, well, they're temporary states.
Yeah.
And clinging to either one can throw us off balance. So the key is to find equilibrium, to stay grounded regardless of the outcome.
So it's not about getting too caught up in the ups and downs of life, but more about, cultivating a kind of steady inner peace, kind of like a surfer, riding the waves, not trying to control the ocean, but learning to flow with its rhythms.
That is a beautiful analogy. It really captures the essence of what the Tao Te Ching is trying to teach us about non-attachment.
Yeah.
It's not about becoming indifferent, but about releasing our grip on outcomes.
Yeah.
Letting go of how we think things should be.
So if we apply that to success, it's more about enjoying the journey, the process of creation, the growth, instead of fixating only on the end goal.
Exactly. Recognizing that true fulfillment comes not from achieving some external measure of success, but from aligning our actions with our deepest values, with that natural flow of the Tao.
That's starting to make sense. So it's like the Tao Te Ching is urging us to shift our focus from the destination to the journey itself.
And to embrace those inevitable twists and turns, the successes, the failures, just all part of that larger tapestry of life.
It's hitting me now that these paradoxes, they aren't just clever wordplay.
Right.
They're actually profound insights into like the nature of reality.
That's the beauty of it. The more you think about them, the more they reveal.
Another one that keeps popping up in my mind is true clarity seems obscure. How can something be clear and obscure at the same time? It feels like a contradiction.
It's another one of those brilliant mind benders that forces us to look beyond the surface.
Yeah.
See, our minds, they crave certainty, clear-cut answers, black and white thinking. But the Tao Te Ching suggests that real wisdom often lies in those gray areas, in the ambiguity and the mystery beneath the surface.
So it's about embracing the unknown, accepting that we don't have all the answers, and being okay with, well, a little bit of uncertainty.
Exactly. Cultivating that beginner's mind, a sense of curiosity, of wonder, rather than clinging to rigid beliefs.
It's interesting how the Tao Te Ching seems to really stress the importance of intuition and inner knowing, as opposed to relying only on logic or intellect.
Yeah. It's about trusting that wisdom of the heart, just as much as the wisdom of the mind. There's a passage that says, the master observes the world, but trusts his inner vision. So that reminder to look within, to really cultivate that deep connection with our own intuition.
So it's not about rejecting knowledge or reason. It's about balancing it with a deep understanding, something that comes from within.
Exactly. And that inner knowing, that connection to the Tao, is what allows us to navigate those complexities of life, with grace and wisdom.
All this talk about paradoxes and inner wisdom, I gotta admit, it's making my head spin a little bit. In a good way, though. I think I need a minute to process it all.
All right. Mental digestion's always good.
Before we do that, though, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the social and political implications of the Tao Te Ching? I mean, we touched on it a little earlier, but I think there's a lot there that's really relevant to, well, the challenges we're facing in the world today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Tao Te Ching offers a pretty radical critique of conventional power structures.
Yeah.
It's got a vision of a more just and harmonious society. It called to question authority, to resist oppression, to try to create a world based on compassion and balance.
So it's not just a guide for personal transformation, but also kind of a blueprint for social and political change as well.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so relevant, so timely, right? We're facing so many complex issues: climate change, social inequality, political polarization. And the Tao Te Ching offers, a framework for addressing all that from a place of wisdom and compassion.
You mentioned earlier that it criticizes, the pursuit of wealth and power. Can you say more about that? How does it envision a different way to structure society?
Well, it challenges this idea that, happiness comes from material things or social status. It encourages us to find contentment in simplicity, in living in harmony with nature, and building strong community bonds.
So it's about shifting our values from, consumerism and competition to cooperation and a deeper sense of interconnectedness.
Exactly. And it promotes a kind of decentralized governance where power is spread out more evenly rather than concentrated in, the hands of a few.
So it's a vision of a more egalitarian, sustainable, peaceful world. But how do you actually put those ideals into practice? The Tao Te Ching is full of metaphors and paradoxes, but it doesn't really give you concrete solutions.
That's true. I mean, the Tao Te Ching is more of it's a guiding philosophy than a political manifesto. It encourages us to explore its principles, to think about their meaning, and to find creative ways to apply them to our own lives, to the challenges facing, our communities in the world.
It's like a seed, that Lao Tzu planted thousands of years ago.
Right.
And it's up to each generation to kind of cultivate it in their own unique way.
That's beautiful. And that's what makes it so endlessly fascinating and inspiring.
Yeah.
It's a timeless source of wisdom that continues to nourish and challenge us and inviting us to live more consciously, more compassionately, and, more in tune with that natural flow of the universe.
Okay. I think that's a good place to pause and give our listeners a moment to think about all these really profound ideas. When we come back, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the Tao Te Ching. We'll look at some final insights and leave you with some food for thought to chew on your own. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Tao Te Ching. My mind is, it's buzzing with all these insights and paradoxes, like Lao Tzu's whispering secrets across the centuries.
Well, it definitely makes you think. The deeper you go, the more layers you discover.
So as we wrap up, what are some key takeaways you hope listeners will, walk away with?
Well, if there's one thing to remember from this whole deep dive, it's that the Tao Te Ching, it invites us to align ourselves with the Tao, to embrace that natural flow of life, rather than resisting it.
Sounds so simple, but it can be so hard.
Yeah.
Our minds, they're wired for control, for trying to predict things, imposing our will. That's us, right? Human nature. But the Tao Te Ching, it reminds us that true power, well, it doesn't come from force. It comes from letting go. Remember, Wu Wei, that art of effortless action.
Right, finding that sweet spot where effortlessness meets effectiveness. How do we cultivate that, though? In our daily lives, I mean.
It's like learning to dance with life's rhythms instead of, trying to be the conductor. It takes flexibility, adaptability, willingness to, well, embrace the unknown, be like water, yield, flow around obstacles instead of trying to bulldoze through them.
This is making me think of something I've been struggling with. I've been so focused on this one specific outcome for a project. I've gotten so, I don't know, rigid and stressed. And I'm starting to see that, well, that clinging to the outcome, it's actually holding me back.
That's a perfect example of how our need to control things can backfire. The Tao Te Ching, it tells us to let go of those outcomes, to trust the process.
So surrendering to the Tao, trusting that things will work out, even if it's not exactly how we pictured it.
That's it. Cultivating that deep trust in the wisdom of the universe.
It's not just about letting go of control, though. We also talked about softness, about yielding. I gotta admit, those ideas seemed, well, a little off to me at first. But I'm starting to see how powerful they can be.
Think of that willow tree bending in the wind. It's not weak. It's resilient. It adapts. It knows when to yield instead of resist. Sometimes the best way to deal with an obstacle isn't to, ram into it, is to find a way around, to flow with it like water.
And then there's emptiness. I gotta be honest, that one sounded kind of, I don't know, scary at first. But you described it as this mental and spiritual state, one of openness, of receptivity, creating space for the Tao to work its magic.
Imagine you clear all the clutter off your desk. What happens? You've got space for new ideas,
Yeah.
new possibilities. That's what emptiness is about. Creating that fertile void where inspiration, creativity, all that can flourish.
It's like decluttering your mind.
Yeah.
Making room for something new.
Exactly. Letting go of those preconceived notions, limiting beliefs, the attachments that just cloud our perception.
Another big takeaway for me is the focus on simplicity, on contentment. In a world that's all about more, 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 the Tao Te Ching is like this, I don't know, refreshing reminder that true happiness, it comes from within.
It encourages us to appreciate what we have, right? Find joy in the ordinary. Connect with nature. Cultivate that inner peace instead of chasing external validation.
And it also challenges us to rethink our ideas about success and failure. They're not like endpoints. They're part of an ongoing process, a journey of growth and evolution.
Remember that paradox.
Yeah.
Success is as dangerous as failure. Holding on to either one can throw you off balance. The key is to find equilibrium. Stay grounded no matter the outcome.
I'm seeing this theme, this common thread through all the teachings. It's about balance in all things, effort and ease, action and non-action, striving and acceptance.
Beautiful. The Tao Te Ching, it's all about that delicate balance, finding that sweet spot where we're in harmony with ourselves and the world around us.
And before we finish up, I want to touch on the social and political side of the Tao Te Ching again. It's not just like a personal development guide. It's a blueprint for a more just world, a more harmonious world.
It's a call to question authority, challenge the status quo, create a society that puts the well-being of everyone first, not just a select few.
The Tao Te Ching, it critiques that pursuit of wealth, of military power. It urges us to find a different way, one based on cooperation, on compassion, a deep respect for nature.
A vision of a world where power is shared more evenly, where leaders, they serve the people, and where we recognize our interconnectedness with all things.
So how do we take these ancient teachings, though, and apply them to the problems we face today, the complex problems? How do we cultivate a more Taoist approach to politics, to social justice, to our everyday lives?
That's the big question, isn't it? The Tao Te Ching doesn't offer, easy answers or step-by-step instructions. It invites us to really engage with it, to think about it, to find creative ways to live it, in our own lives and in our communities.
It's like Lao Tzu gave us this toolbox full of powerful tools.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to figure out how to use them to build a better world.
That's a great way to put it. And as we wrap up our deep dive here, I want to leave you with one Last thought to consider. Remember that passage. True words seem paradoxical. Embrace those paradoxes. Don't be afraid to question things, to challenge conventional thinking, to explore those mysteries, the ones that lie just beyond the surface.
As you go about your day, ask yourself, how can I practice non-action? Where can I be more soft, more yielding? How can I embrace emptiness and create space for the Tao to work in my life?
Remember, the Tao Te Ching, it's not just a book, it's an invitation to, well, a journey, one of self-discovery, of transformation, of aligning yourself with, well, with the deepest truths of existence.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Tao Te Ching. We hope it's made you curious and that it's inspired you to explore these teachings even further. Until next time, may you find harmony and balance on your own path.